I stared at my laptop screen, reading the same sentence over and over until the words stopped making sense. Your employment has been terminated effective immediately. The email signature at the bottom belonged to Elliot Barnes, my director. The man who'd visited me in the hospital 3 weeks ago with flowers and promises. My hands trembled as I scrolled up to check the date. Today. They'd fired me today while I was still on approved medical leave, recovering from emergency surgery in my apartment. The disbelief hit first, then the fury, white-hot and blinding. I couldn't breathe properly. My surgical wound ached with each sharp inhale. Access denied. That's what the system message had said when I tried to log into our company portal this morning. I thought it was a glitch. It wasn't. They'd locked me out while I was healing. While I was protected by law. My name is Maya Reynolds. I'm 34 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I was the senior campaign strategist at Horizon Marketing Solutions. That title doesn't capture what I actually did. I was the person who turned impossible deadlines into award-winning campaigns. I was the one clients requested by name. I was the reason our division consistently outperformed every projection. For 5 years I poured everything into that company. Late nights, skipped vacations, weekends spent perfecting presentations that others would present. I believed loyalty mattered. I believed excellence would be rewarded. I believed that if I just worked hard enough I'd be valued. But there were signs I missed. Small moments that should have warned me. Elliot's jokes that landed like threats. The way he smiled when he took credit. The subtle ways he reminded me I was replaceable. I should have seen it coming. For months ago I delivered the campaign that changed everything. The Vanguard account, our biggest client, had been threatening to leave. Their previous 3 campaigns had underperformed and they were ready to walk. I spent 6 weeks rebuilding their entire strategy from scratch, analyzing data nobody else wanted to touch, identifying patterns everyone else had missed. When I presented the new approach, the client went silent. Then their CEO stood up and shook my hand. "This is exactly what we needed," she said. The campaign launched 2 months later. Record-breaking engagement. Sales increased 43% in the first quarter alone. Vanguard signed a 3-year extension worth millions. At the company celebration, Elliot stood at the front of the room accepting congratulations. He talked about his vision and his strategy. He mentioned the team once. He never said my name. Not once. I stood in the back watching him bask in my success and told myself it didn't matter. The work spoke for itself. I was so wrong. The comment came during a routine team meeting 2 weeks after the Vanguard celebration. We were discussing upcoming projects and vacation schedules. I mentioned I'd been thinking about taking a long weekend in the fall, my first time off in over a year. Elliot laughed, but the sound had an edge to it. "Maya taking time off? That's funny," he said, still smiling. "You're too indispensable to ever leave us. What would we do without you?" Everyone chuckled nervously. It should have felt like a compliment. It should have made me feel valued. Instead, something cold settled in my stomach. The way he emphasized indispensable sounded less like praise and more like a warning. Like I wasn't allowed to have a life outside these walls. I forced a smile and changed the subject. But that night, lying awake, I couldn't shake the feeling that Elliot hadn't been joking at all. He'd been establishing ownership. And I'd let him. The pain started during a late-night emergency project. We were 3 days from a major pitch, and Elliot had dumped a complete strategy overhaul on my desk at 6 in the evening. Client changed their mind about the direction. Need it rebuilt by morning. I stayed at my desk, working through the sharp ache in my lower abdomen that I'd been ignoring for weeks. By midnight, the pain had become unbearable. By 2 a.m., I was on the floor of the office bathroom, unable to stand. A coworker found me and called an ambulance. The emergency room doctor ordered immediate surgery. Appendicitis, complicated by an infection I'd been ignoring for too long. "You could have died if you'd waited another day," she told me seriously. The surgery took 3 hours. When I woke up, groggy and aching, the doctor stood beside my bed with paperwork. "You're on mandatory medical leave for at least 4 weeks. Minimum. No exceptions." Elliot visited me in the hospital the next afternoon, carrying an enormous bouquet of flowers that seemed too cheerful for the sterile room. "Don't worry about anything," he said, setting the flowers on the windowsill. "Your job is completely safe with me. Just focus on getting better." His smile was warm, his tone reassuring. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But then I noticed his eyes flick toward my open laptop on the bedside table, the one I'd foolishly brought with me, still running project reports I'd been updating between pain medication doses. "You really should rest," he added, though his gaze lingered on the screen. "We'll manage without you for a few weeks." The way he said "without you" made my chest tighten. "Not while you're recovering. Not until you're back. Without you." Like I was already gone. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the medication was making me anxious. But I closed the laptop anyway. 1 week into my medical leave, I woke up to a notification from our company Slack. A new user had been added to our team channel. Her name was Amanda Foster, and her title read, Temporary Project Support. I stared at the screen trying to understand. Elliot had mentioned nothing about bringing in temporary help. I scrolled through the messages I'd missed overnight. Amanda had already been assigned to 3 projects. My projects. The ones I'd been managing before my surgery. "Welcome to the team," Elliot had written, followed by a dozen emoji reactions from my coworkers. "Amanda will be supporting us while we redistribute some workload." Redistribute. Not while Maya recovers. Not temporarily covering Maya's assignments. Redistribute. As if my work was just loose inventory to be reassigned permanently. I typed out 3 different responses and deleted them all. My hands shook. The surgical wound pulled painfully when I sat up too quickly. I told myself it was fine. It was temporary. Just like her title said. Temporary. The team chat started changing after that. At first it was subtle. Messages that used to flow constantly slowed to a trickle when I was online. Questions I asked went unanswered for hours, when they used to be answered in minutes. Conversations would stop mid-thread when I commented, then resume later without me. I told myself everyone was just busy. That they didn't want to burden me during recovery. That I was reading too much into normal work patterns. But the silence felt deliberate. Waited. Like I'd already been erased and nobody wanted to admit it to my face. I watched Amanda's name appear more and more frequently in channels I'd helped create. She posted updates on my campaigns, responded to client questions I should have been handling, made decisions about projects I'd started. And everyone responded to her like she'd always been there. Like I was already a memory. I closed Slack and didn't open it again for 3 days. The official email from HR arrived exactly 2 weeks into my leave. The subject line read, Medical Leave Confirmation and Benefits Overview. I opened it expecting a routine check-in, standard procedure for any extended absence. Instead, I found a detailed breakdown of my leave dates, insurance continuation, short-term disability payments, and legal protections under FMLA. Everything was formal, precise, officially documented. For the first time since the surgery, I felt myself relax. This was proof. Written confirmation from HR that my leave was approved, protected, legitimate. Elliot couldn't touch this. Nobody could. I had 4 weeks of protected recovery time, guaranteed by both company policy and federal law. I saved the email to 3 different folders and took a screenshot for my personal files. Then I let myself rest, really rest, for the first time since the hospital. I actually believed I was safe. That belief lasted exactly 3 days. The text message came from Kira, one of the junior strategists on my team. We'd always been friendly, though not close. "Hey," her message read, sent at 11:47 p.m. "I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I thought you should know. I overheard Elliot on a call today saying you might not be coming back." My heart stopped. I read the message 5 times, looking for some other interpretation, some way it could mean something different. There wasn't one. I typed back immediately, "What exactly did he say?" The 3 dots appeared and disappeared 4 times before her response came. "He was talking to someone upstairs. He said your position needed long-term stability, and they were exploring options." "I'm sorry. I thought you deserved to know." I thanked her and set my phone down with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. My mind raced through every interaction, every email, every reassurance Elliot had given me. All lies. He'd been planning this from the beginning. The flowers. The promises. The smile. All of it calculated. And I'd believed every word. The calendar invitation disappeared first. I'd been the lead on our monthly strategy review for 3 years, my name permanently attached to the recurring meeting. One morning I checked my calendar out of habit and found it gone. Deleted. No explanation, no notification. Just erased. I opened my email to search for the meeting notes, thinking maybe I'd been moved to optional attendance. What I found was worse. The latest meeting summary had just been distributed. My name had been removed from the major deliverable I'd been managing for 6 months. The Vanguard expansion project, the one I'd conceptualized and built from nothing, now listed Amanda Foster as lead strategist. Elliot's name appeared as executive sponsor. Mine appeared nowhere. Not in the attendee list. Not in the project roles. Not in the acknowledgements. I'd been erased completely as if I'd never existed. I sat frozen, staring at the document, watching my career get rewritten in real time. They weren't waiting for me to resign. They were replacing me while I was legally protected and unable to fight back. When I couldn't access the shared drive, I assumed it was a technical issue. Our system had glitches sometimes, especially with VPN connections. I restarted my computer, checked my internet, tried 3 different browsers. Nothing worked. Every shared folder, every project file, every document I'd created over 5 years was suddenly inaccessible. Permission denied appeared on every click. I called IT, trying to keep my voice steady. The technician put me on hold for 7 minutes. When he came back, his voice was carefully neutral. "There's been a temporary permissions update," he said. "Your access level was adjusted due to your current leave status." My stomach dropped. Adjusted how? I don't have those details. You'd need to speak with your director about access requirements during extended absences. But my gut knew better. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a security protocol. This was Elliot systematically locking me out of my own work, preparing for a future where I didn't exist at the company anymore. And IT had been instructed to make it sound routine. The team Zoom call wasn't mandatory, but I joined anyway. I needed to see their faces, to remind everyone I still existed, that I was coming back. When I appeared on screen, there was a beat of surprised silence. Then Elliot's smile, wide and hollow. "Waya. Great to see you. How are you feeling?" I kept my voice bright. "Much better. Looking forward to getting back to work." He nodded enthusiastically. "That's wonderful. Well, don't rush it. We've got everything covered here." Then he turned to the group. "Everyone, I want to make sure Amanda feels welcomed as she's filling some very big shoes." He gestured toward Amanda on screen. She smiled uncomfortably. The phrase hung in the air. Filling. Not covering. Not supporting. Filling. Present tense. Permanent. The silence that followed lasted 3 seconds too long. Nobody corrected him. Nobody said, "While Maya's recovering." They just nodded and moved on to the agenda. I stayed on the call for 10 more minutes, invisible, listening to them discuss my projects like I'd never worked on them. Then I logged off and cried for the first time since the surgery. Not from pain. From betrayal. The notice came via automated email at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Your building access badge has been deactivated due to extended inactive status." The message was clinical, impersonal, generated by a system that didn't care about context or legality or the person on the receiving end. I read it 3 times, my coffee going cold in my hand. Inactive status. Like I was a piece of equipment that hadn't been used recently, not an employee on protected medical leave. I called security, then HR, then IT. Each department transferred me to another. Nobody had answers. Nobody could explain why someone on approved FMLA leave would have their physical access revoked. "It's just protocol," one person said. "A security measure," claimed another. But I knew what it really was. One more step in making my return impossible. Even if I showed up tomorrow, I couldn't get into the building. Couldn't reach my desk. Couldn't prove I still belonged there. The message read like an obituary. And maybe that was the point. The termination email arrived exactly 22 days into my medical leave. I was back at the beginning, staring at my laptop, reading words that didn't make sense. "Due to restructuring needs and operational requirements, your position has been eliminated effective immediately." Elliot's signature sat at the bottom, professional and detached. No mention of the hospital visit. No acknowledgement of the promises. No reference to the fact that I was on legally protected leave. Just corporate language designed to make an illegal termination sound routine. My hands shook as I scrolled through the attachments. Severance calculation. COBRA insurance continuation. A checklist for returning company property I couldn't access because they'd locked me out. Everything was prepared, polished, final. They'd planned this carefully. timed it precisely. And they'd assumed I'd accept it quietly, that I'd be too sick, too tired, too defeated to fight back. They assumed wrong. I took a screenshot of everything. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop and titled it Evidence. The quiet storm had begun. I didn't call Elliot. I didn't send an angry email. I didn't post on social media or complain to former coworkers. Instead, I spent the next 6 hours doing what I did best. Building a case with cold, methodical precision. Screenshots of every message, every email, every promise. I documented dates and times, cross-referenced company policies with federal FMLA regulations. I pulled up my hospital discharge papers, my doctor's orders, HR's official leave confirmation. I organized everything chronologically, creating a timeline that showed exactly when each step of the plan had occurred. The temporary hire. The access revocations. The meeting removals. The termination. Every piece of evidence was dated, verified, backed up in 3 locations. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't shaking. I was thinking clearly for the first time in weeks. Calm fury had replaced chaos, and calm fury was far more dangerous. When I finished, I had 47 pages of documentation. Enough to bury them. I just needed to decide where to send it first. I called the main HR line at 9 a.m. the next morning. My voice didn't shake. I'd practiced. When the representative answered, I kept my tone professional and direct. This is Maya Reynolds from the marketing division. I'm currently on approved FMLA leave, and I need to confirm my leave status. There was a pause longer than there should have been. Let me pull up your file, she said. I heard typing, then silence that stretched uncomfortably. Ms. Reynolds, can you hold for just a moment? She didn't wait for my answer. The hold music felt like an eternity. When she came back, her voice had changed. Less routine, more careful. I'm going to need to transfer you to our senior HR manager. Please don't hang up. My pulse quickened. That wasn't standard procedure. Something was very wrong. Or maybe, I thought as the transfer clicked through, something was about to become very right. Because if HR didn't know about my termination, that meant Elliot had acted alone. And that was a mistake he couldn't undo. The senior HR manager, a woman named Patricia Cole, asked me to forward any and all correspondence regarding your medical leave and recent communications from your director. Her tone was neutral but urgent. I sent everything within 5 minutes. 47 pages of evidence, organized and annotated. The read receipt came back immediately. Then my phone rang. Ms. Reynolds, I need to clarify something. You received a termination notice while on protected medical leave. Yes. Yesterday. From Elliot Barnes. I heard typing fast and aggressive. And your building access was revoked when? A week ago. More typing. Then a long exhale. I'm going to be very direct with you. I had no knowledge of any termination proceedings. Neither did my department. This should not have happened. My hands gripped the phone tighter. What does that mean? It means, she said carefully, that your director appears to have acted outside proper authorization. We're opening an immediate investigation. I need you to not respond to any further communications from Mr. Barnes until we've completed our review. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Patricia called me back within 48 hours with questions I hadn't anticipated. Did you ever notice discrepancies in project attribution or budget allocations during your time working under Mr. Barnes? I hesitated. He often took credit for work I did. But I assumed that was normal. It's not, she said flatly. We've been reviewing departmental records. There are irregularities. She paused. Significant ones. Over the next week, I learned through careful questions that HR had discovered more than just my wrongful termination. Elliot had been manipulating performance records, inflating his own metrics using my results. He'd falsified budget reports to hide overspending. And most damningly, he'd hired Amanda as a permanent replacement without proper authorization, using budget allocated for temporary contractors. The investigation expanded. HR looped in corporate legal, then compliance, then internal audit. The temp I'd been watching in Slack suddenly disappeared, her profile deactivated without explanation. Elliot went silent on all company channels. And I waited, documentation ready, knowing the foundation was crumbling beneath him. I sent Elliot one carefully crafted email. The subject line read, Thank you. The body was brief and poisonously polite. Elliot, I wanted to thank you for your support during my transition. I know redistributing my responsibilities during my unavailability wasn't easy, and I appreciate how you handled the situation. I didn't mention the termination. I didn't acknowledge the betrayal. I just dangled the rope and waited to see if he'd hang himself with it. His response came within an hour. Maya, I appreciate your understanding. Your role was reallocated due to operational needs during your unavailability. These decisions are never easy, but the team's stability had to come first. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. I read it twice, then forwarded it directly to Patricia with a single line. As discussed, written confirmation of decision made during protected leave. Her response came 3 minutes later. Received. Adding to formal report. This is exactly what we needed. Elliot had just admitted in writing to making employment decisions based on my medical absence. Corporate legal would have a field day with that email. And I'd barely had to do anything except let him keep talking. The cracks widened over the next 10 days. Through Kira's continued updates and my own careful monitoring of public company channels, I watched Elliot's world collapse in slow motion. The investigation had uncovered everything Patricia had hinted at. Altered performance records going back 18 months. Budget reports that showed contractor expenses when the money had actually gone to unauthorized permanent hires. Client billing irregularities tied to the Vanguard account. My wrongful termination was just the catalyst. The real damage went far deeper. Corporate legal had gotten involved. Then the ethics committee. Then, according to Kira's latest message, external auditors. Elliot's name disappeared from the executive leadership page. The team's Slack went eerily quiet. Amanda's profile vanished completely from the system. And I received a call from Patricia asking if I'd be available for a meeting the following Tuesday. We'd like to discuss your status, she said. And we'll have our legal counsel present. I marked my calendar and allowed myself a small, cold smile. Justice was slow. But it was coming. The closed-door board meeting happened on a Thursday afternoon. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. Kira sent me updates in real time. Messages arriving in rapid succession like breaking news alerts. Elliot just got called upstairs. 3 executives and a woman with a briefcase. 10 minutes later, he's still in there. Conference room blinds are closed. 20 minutes, someone from legal just went in. 45 minutes, he came out. Maya, he looked destroyed. The official company-wide email arrived 3 hours later. Subject, leadership changes and compliance reminder. The body was corporate and careful, but the message was clear. Effective immediately, Elliot Barnes is no longer with the organization. We take compliance seriously and will not tolerate violations of company policy or legal standards. The temporary contractor position had been terminated. An interim director would be assigned. All employees were reminded of proper procedures for personnel decisions. I read the email twice, then closed my laptop and sat in silence. It was over. Really over. Not just for me. For him too. And somehow that felt less satisfying than I'd imagined. Just necessary. Just right. Just done. Patricia called the next morning with an offer I'd been half expecting. Full reinstatement. Back pay for the time I'd been wrongfully terminated. Restoration of all benefits and access. A formal letter of apology in my personnel file. We hope you'll consider returning, she said. Your contributions to this organization have been invaluable. I thanked her and asked for time to think. Then I opened my laptop and started reviewing the interview requests I'd received over the past 2 weeks. 5 companies had reached out, most through LinkedIn, some through former colleagues. One message stood out. It was from Harrison Strategic, a competitor Elliot had mocked repeatedly as second-rate. Their VP of marketing wanted to discuss a leadership opportunity. I scheduled the call for that afternoon. When the VP outlined the role, my pulse quickened. Creative director. Full autonomy. A team that would report to me. Salary that made my old position look insulting. We've been following your work for years, she said. The Vanguard campaign was remarkable. We'd love to have that kind of strategic thinking here. I accepted before the call ended. 2 weeks after Elliot's termination, I declined Horizon Marketing's reinstatement offer. Politely. Professionally. Permanently. Patricia sounded disappointed but not surprised. I understand, she said. I hope there are no hard feelings. I assured her there weren't. And I meant it. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. My last day of medical leave ended on a Friday. My first day at Harrison Strategic started the following Monday. The office was smaller, brighter, filled with people who'd actually read my work and valued it. My new manager shook my hand and said, "We're lucky to have you. No flowers with hidden agendas. No promises that would be broken. Just honest respect." I spent my first week meeting my team, reviewing projects, and slowly realizing something profound. I'd been so focused on what I'd lost that I hadn't seen what I'd gained. Distance. Clarity. Proof of my own worth, independent of anyone's validation. Elliot hadn't just fired me. He'd freed me from believing I needed him at all. Now I sit in my living room, the same place the story began, the place where I read that termination email with shaking hands and a healing surgical wound. But everything has changed. My new company laptop sits open on the coffee table, my login credentials working perfectly. My calendar shows meetings I control, projects I own, a team that knows my name and my work. No access denied messages. No permissions revoked. No invisible erasure. I think about Elliot sometimes. About his smile in the hospital. About how certain he was that I wouldn't fight back. About how thoroughly he underestimated the person he'd spent 5 years exploiting. He thought firing me during medical leave would be easy, that I'd be too sick or too scared to respond. He didn't expect HR to escalate it. He didn't expect corporate legal to dig deeper. He didn't expect me to document everything. They didn't just fire me, I realized, closing the laptop with a satisfied click. They freed me. And in trying to erase me, they exposed themselves. The truth always wins. Sometimes it just needs a little evidence and a lot of patience.